And I agree that kids need moms and dads together. That's critical. Almost every person I met in prison, almost every single one, came from single parent or no parent household. Without exception. I mean, it was strange. I met one kid, white boy Michael. White boy Mike, he was the only one. And he was a super cool guy. I loved this kid. But, he unfortunately fell into opioid addiction. So he robbed a pharmacy for opioids. And to me, of course it's a crime. I wish I was in a resort. No, there are no resorts. Yeah, big shout out to White Boy Mike. White Boy Mike, he became addicted to painkillers, which can happen to anyone. I think. And his addiction drove him to do something crazy, which is to rob a pharmacy for pain meds. And, he was always so sheepish. I wouldn't make fun of him too much, but we joke and say, "You're the only guy here with the two parents, backyard, dog, brothers and sisters, happy family, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "It doesn't make me feel great, but it's true." I said, "Yeah, that's crazy, White Boy Mike." And we would talk about white guy stuff, memes, tennis, golf. The other guys didn't understand what we were talking about. They were like, "Tennis, bitch? What the fuck is tennis? Never heard of it." The fuck is a tennis? Swimming. You know how to swim? In the water? What? Swim. I barely know how to swim. That's the New York in me. What you cooking? Listen, in jail, that's the way it is. You can love it or hate it, but that's just the way it is. It's a very racial place. And, it's a joke in the black community, but many black people sort of never learn to swim because it's kind of I don't know. You can YouTube and Google that, but it's yeah. Oil. We're talking about oil. We're talking about oil, bitch. Uh, no. Look, and that's the thing. I mean, parents are important, but role models are just as important. I grew up with one foot in the hood and one foot on Park Avenue. I went to this very fancy high school. Many rich people sent their kids to, but not only rich people. And there were absentee parents, right? Exactly, Josh. There are a lot of absentee parents. And those absentee parents, their kids, they didn't become criminals, but they certainly didn't live up to their potential. A lot of them became drug addicts or kind of just underachievers. I had some cool nicknames in prison. And no, in prison, the Albanians, we had our own crew. And Albanians are very overrepresented in prison. We love committing crimes for some reason. Not me specifically, but many Albanians do. And so when I showed up in prison, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit like, okay, I don't know what's gonna happen, man. These guys, I don't know what the tough level here is on a scale of 1 to 10. I can pull off a 3 or a 5, but I can't turn it up to 10. I'm not gonna stab some dude in the eye, you know. So I show up, and all of a sudden, I hear the bird call, "Cuckoo!" And this is the Albanian flag, by the way. This is the two-headed eagle. And I'm like, Shipe? That means Albanian. Albanian in Albanian. Shipe? Like American? And they're like, Shipe! And that was it. It was over. All Albanians in there. Felt like it was an Albanian family reunion. In fact, crazy story. I was in there. I shouldn't have mentioned the guy's name, so I'll just say, oh gosh, I don't know. I'll call him Boer, which just means guy in Albanian. And so I'm in there with this guy Boer, and he says, I know your cousin. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I know your cousin. And he names my cousin. And he says, I was with him in this place and that place, and we were in Albania together. I said, no fucking way, it's nuts. I called my cousin because I figured the guy's lying or something. Totally. It's not protection from the mafia. There's no Albanian mafia per se. It's just sort of a collective. There was one guy in there who was a famous Albanian writer. Go figure. But he was also he said that he was also a chemist. not the kind of chemistry I did. Pelham Parkway, there you go. So we're countrymen. We stick together. So that was a huge relief for me. But I was cool with everyone. I knew how to communicate. I mean, you know how to talk to people and not be a dickhead. You'd be fine. You respect all people as people. You don't look down on somebody because of the way they were brought up or where they're from or whatever. It's their character. And not everyone had a good character. In fact, a good chunk of people there didn't have good characters. But when you peel back the layers, some people yeah. Some people, they're sort of, they're not, I hate to call them victims, but like some people are in terrible circumstances. And the question becomes, what would you do? Bill Gates, I was reading his biography, Source Code, autobiography, memoir. And he got to go hiking and camping, and he got to use computers at his high school. What if you had to take a gun to your high school? What would you do? Different world. Bit of a different world. So, the way, where you're born into, this random chance. Now, someone's asking about determinism and free will. It maybe not be random chance, but the point is, um, some people sort of start with a little bit better odds in some things, so to speak. And, again, I wouldn't look down on somebody because of where they started. You could look down on somebody maybe where they finished, but you also have to understand their journey and their travel. Um, exactly, GGM, exactly. Bill Gates' dad was became very, very successful, but Bill Gates' father didn't start out very successful at all. And he fought and worked his way hard to become a respectable attorney. I've actually used and actually I'll recommend his father's law firm, K&L Gates. Now, Mr. Gates Sr. passed away. Um, Bill Gates the second passed away some years back, but K&L Gates, good law firm based out of Washington, and they grew with Microsoft, if that makes sense. And Bill Jr. or Bill the Third really is his real name, Bill Gates the Third, because there's another Junior actually. He should be Bill Gates the Fourth, but Bill Gates the Third, very easily could have been doing something else. And his father was a successful attorney. They happened to go to school, where they had a computer early, and that was luck, but it worked out. And being Bill Gates is not the be all end all. I think Bill Gates would tell you that. But the point is, the chance to achieve some ideal or some happiness, the chances you could achieve a gamut of outcomes. They certainly improve if you have options to begin with, but they're not. Uh, it, they're necessary, but not sufficient, right? You still have to have the drive within you. Bill Gates is a special person. His brothers and sisters, even though mostly genetically the same, still didn't have that drive, and so it is fairly random. But I think if Bill Gates were black and born in a single family household in the Bronx, there's no pathway to success. There's no pathway to the kind of success he had, the way he had it. Now, can you find another pathway? Sure, but there's Bill Gates the third had thousands of pathways. He could have become a successful musician. He could have become a successful, virtually anything else, writer. But instead, ushered in the computer revolution. But the same kid in the Bronx doesn't necessarily have that same pathway. And I think if you've actually lived it, which, in some ways I have, you actually lived it, you know what I'm talking about. Because, yes, you can find a way out, but that way out, if if the maze is so elaborate, it's such a contraption to get out of the maze you're in, you may not be able to do it. But if the road is paved with gold for you to get out, it certainly helps. So, getting out of the hood for me was a mix of my own determination and good parenting. A little bit of bad parenting too, and just kind of my own determination. But I don't know. I really don't know all the answers to these things, but I do think that prison was really interesting experience. I'll say that. Yeah, exactly, Mac. I mean, the high IQ random dice roll is no different from when you play a role playing game and you get character points. You get those character points, you stack them all in intelligence, and your character might succeed. All right, spies are down now, 20 basis points. Palantir up 5% still.